following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
All right. Hey, we are back home. We are back from Canton, back in the bar, and back to give you plenty of fantasy insight this week. We're going to be touching on all the news and notes from around the NFL, including some fallout from the preseason week 2 here. And we'll also talk about some guys that we want absolutely no part of coming up in redrafts. It's redraft season right now. Everybody's getting their home leagues and everything fired up. We'll talk about guys that we do not want to touch with a 10-foot pole. All that and more coming up right now on Belly Up Fantasy Live.
Rieger getting traded to Minnesota changes nothing.
6'4" guys running 4.4s. These guys don't grow on trees. And a lot of times I'm willing to bet on, especially long term, on the freak athlete.
You don't ever want to overreact to what guys look like in preseason. There's been a ton of preseason all-stars that never make rosters or never pan out. All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I am Chase Thornton coming to you, as always, or as usual anyway, back here at the Mont and Bailey Basement Bar. Ready to talk some football during this preseason week 2 here. We've got the games wrapped up last night. Plenty to talk about. We haven't really talked to each other in 2 weeks. I was gone last week to the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton. Great time, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I am not alone. I have back with me, as per usual, our good friend Kevin Wilson. Let's welcome him in. Kevin, how are we doing this morning?
We are doing good, Chase. And as I was telling you before we went live, there was a couple of days where we had some cooler weather than normal, but that's over. We're back in the heat dome. So we're just trying to survive around here.
Everything's back to normal. Yeah.
Back to normal. And we're knee deep in some football action, and I'm excited to get started.
Very much so. Very much so. So, yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Let's just jump right into it.
Okay, let's jump.
Yeah, as I said, back from the Fantasy Football Expo this weekend, last weekend. Great time. If anybody out there, has not been to it, is listening, hasn't been to it, or, I would recommend making a plan to get there. If you can't do it next year, get there at some point. I mean, it first off, Hall of Fame is so much. Last time I was at the Hall of Fame was literally 30 years ago. I think I was junior high school. And it is a lot more. It's not just a building full of bronze busts anymore and some old jerseys and footballs. It's a whole village they have there now with not just the stadium, but there's a dome like practice facility that they can use for community sports events and that kind of thing. There's restaurants on site, sports bars on site, and different rides and attractions that way. There's a full hotel and water park and that kind of thing being constructed right now. They've really turned that into, as the NFL has expanded and exploded, they're really turning that into a destination, a destination area. The entire, like a village.
Destination, period.
Yeah. It's a complete Hall of Fame village. It's no longer just like the Hall of Fame and you go and you walk around the building for a couple hours. You can spend some time there. And it was definitely a great time that way, but also, the main reason for being there, the Fantasy Football Expo itself, meeting people from around the industry, meeting just avid fantasy football fans that just wanted to be there and be part of it and share in this, what Greg Kellogg was telling us. I got to meet so many wonderful people from around the industry and talk with Bob Long, who started the whole thing. And I mentioned Greg Kellogg, Howard Bender, Gary Davenport, the godfather of IDP, just so many awesome people to talk to and listen and learn from. But Greg Kellogg was talking to us after the flag football tournament, myself and Chris and Dan Mader. And he kept calling it, this beautiful hobby that we all have, which is funny for a guy who's literally coming from a guy who's made his living talking about it and writing about it and broadcasting about it. But, I really liked that he still thought of it that way and that he still described it that way. And he didn't, we all take it serious.
You and I are trying to, because this is something we're passionate about.
Yeah.
And it's something that we like to do. And so if we could get into it and be like some of those guys that are really, they're known, they're making money, and
Right.
they're doing something that they love to do, that's what we aspire to.
Right. And that was some part of the charm, and a big part of the charm of the entire weekend was just being around, guys and girls like that, learning. I was a sponge all weekend. I just wanted to listen and learn and take in as much as I could there from those kinds of people. But then also, like Greg said, just sharing in our enjoyment, our mutual passion, as you put it, and our love for this hobby that we all started out just doing this for fun. And some of us have taken it farther now. And
I got an invitation to be part of a fantasy football, because I had never done it for most of my life. And I got an invitation and I went, and it's the same league I'm in now years later.
There you go.
And so I knew nothing about any, best ball, dynasty, none of that. And so here I am. I'm going to be in, I don't even know how many redraft leagues. It's getting to the point where it's almost out of control. But I'm also in 2 dynasty. I'm going to be in a best ball league at least. And so it's become almost a full-time thing, which revolves around, of course, my real life. And so, and I'm glad, because sports is something I've always been interested in since I was way back in high school, and I was accused of being a walking sports page. And so then I want to be able to do that, and not just to make money, but I like the idea that I'm actually helping someone in their particular situation. What do I do with this guy or that guy, as long as it's just not this guy, that guy, or why, and why. Let's get into it. Let's hear what you have to say, and then I'll say what I have to say, and then you just decide what I'm going to do. And so that's what I'm looking forward to, is on a large scale.
Right. Just, being able to share that with people. I mean, and that really was the heart of the entire weekend, just being surrounded by people who felt as passionate about it as you did, and could jump into those kinds of talks and have fun and disagree, but have fun while we were doing it.
Right.
Just a great time down there. Des Bryant was one of the talks of the entire weekend. He showed up with a team of his to the flag football tournament. He did not play wide receiver. He played quarterback. He's left-handed. That shocked everybody in the entire expo, that he was left-handed and throwing the ball. But just a great guy, genuine.
I've met him twice down here.
He's
in
just
Texas,
great.
And both times I enjoyed the experience very much.
Really changed my perception. A lot of people said the same thing. Really changed my perception of him. I had a diva wide receiver. I probably had a little bit of bias being a Packer fan and him having been a Cowboy.
Well,
but
that might
meeting
have been
him in
back
person
his
was
playing days, but that's not the case.
No, he took time for a handshake, a dap up, a bro hug, a high five, whatever, with literally anybody that approached. He wasn't surrounded by the entourage, keeping people away. He was genuinely having fun. You could tell he was having fun. He was loving being out there. Literally hung up on a phone call with his girlfriend to take a picture with the Belly Up crew that was down there, because he'd been jawing back and forth with Kelsey quite a bit in warm-ups as we were all getting ready to play in the flag football tournament. And like I said, literally, I love you. I'll call you back right now. I'm gonna do this with these guys real quick. And hung up and took the picture. It was great. I made a joke about I was disappointed I didn't get to cover him, at 5'5" and 44 years old.
Yeah.
But and speaking of that, I did learn too that how old 44 is and just how long ago my college football career was. So I'm still nursing a sprained foot from the flag football tournament. It was an experience though. The whole weekend was great. But as you said, we've got news to talk about. Let's crack into it and let's get her going here.
All right, let's do this thing.
First thing first thing that I know you've been itching to talk about was, obviously we haven't had a chance to talk about the running back signings that happened earlier this week.
And I believe that there were a couple of fantasy analyst talking about fantasy that had this nailed down
Had
2
this
weeks
pegged.
ago. And if you go back and listen to that podcast, you will see that you and I were all over this. And so when it actually came to pass, I'm definitely ready to talk about this.
I literally
Absolutely.
got the DM notification from Kevin, everybody out there, almost simultaneously with the news releases from the news outlets saying that Dalvin Cook has officially signed with the Jets and that Zeke Elliott is signing with the Patriots here. So we've got this, one of the biggest stories of the whole offseason here has been the running back drama and the holdouts and
Right.
the free agents haven't signed anywhere and nobody wants to pay running backs. And Leonard Fournette, we know, is still out there, and Kareem Hunt is still out there despite having taken 16 different
Even though he was
tours.
rumored to be signing with New Orleans and
then he went to,
didn't happen.
He's gone to Indy, he's gone to Minneapolis, he's been all over the place. But Dalvin Cook is now officially a Jet. Zeke is now officially a Patriot. And as you said, we did nail that down a couple of weeks ago. Now it's interesting. It's interesting with the Jets because the same day that they signed Dalvin Cook, they activated Breece Hall. So it looks like they now have two healthy, very good running backs.
He's off the pup list doesn't mean he's healthy.
Well, but he looks to be way ahead of where I think a lot of people maybe expected him to be.
That's right.
So I know, like I said, I know we talked about Dalvin possibly signing with the Jets, but now that he's officially there, what's your take right now, or how are you viewing this New York Jets backfield situation for as we enter our redrafts?
Well, in redraft, I think that Dalvin Cook going to the Jets, it's a good fit, might be a great fit. And so he, as we've talked about, is a guy who's still pretty much at the top of his game. He's not over the hill, maybe because he signed a 1-year deal. So maybe next year we'll have a completely different conversation about him, but he is right at the top of his list. And there's zero chance now that he's going to go in the 8th round or 7th round of drafts as what's going on. So if you listened to me and went ahead and took him, and if you were doing real drafts and got him in the 7th or 8th round, good on you, as I think he is going to be a great addition to that team, and it's going to send back a little bit Breece Hall's development. It has to, and so that might be a good thing because he's off the pup list, doesn't mean he's 100%, so they can ease him in. And so the concern with Dalvin Cook has always been he's great until you get to about week 14 or so. And then he starts to wear down, get hurt, and a fantasy playoffs comes, and he's nowhere to be found.
And what you said there about easing Breece Hall in, I think is a big
15
key.
Or so, Breece Hall, he could be really on the run, and I like that a lot. So if you've got Breece Hall in Dynasty, don't panic, don't get upset, just wait until later in the season because Dalvin Cook is going to be the man. They have to make him the man because they brought him in. And so if you draft him, expect good things for about 14 weeks, and then we'll see where we are.
Right now, Dalvin Cook's going off the board on average, on aggregate here as running back 26. And Breece Hall is going off the board as running back 15.
At 26, I would dance for joy if I got him if
I could get him that, if you get him that late, that would be something there. I'm not necessarily targeting either of these guys in redraft. I guess I like Breece Hall better, even in redraft. Definitely, obviously in Dynasty, but
right.
If we're looking at it here, Breece Hall's going right around the round 3, round 4 turn. At least right now on average, on aggregate, he's going right around the round 3, round 4 turn.
That's a little high for me in redraft. I wouldn't touch that.
Exactly. You're getting Dalvin Cook later. You're getting him about halfway through the 6th round or so. I guess I'd be willing to wait on whichever one of them fell, farther. I wouldn't be opposed to taking either of them as my, say, running back 4 or 3,
Or
where I
so.
don't have to count on either of them.
Right. Because you
But
and
I do
I, in our draft that we're going to be doing live on this show, you and I are joined at the hip, so to speak.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. And so we have the number 2 pick. And so if we're talking about we're 5th round or so, coming around that turn, if Dalvin Cook's sitting there, I could see springing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll be picking right on the, right on that 3-4 turn, that 2-3 turn. Then we'll be picking right on the 4-5 turn there, just about. So, I mean, it's possible one of these guys comes around to us.
We come around the 5 turn and he's sitting there, that's going to have to seriously be discussed.
That'll be something. That'll be something to consider. I like Dalvin earlier in the season, like you brought up. I like Dalvin earlier in the season. I think they can give him a bigger workload as they ease Breece Hall into things. Now, Breece Hall was on a stratospheric projection last year before he got injured. Probably was the offensive rookie of the year over his teammate Garrett Wilson until he got hurt. Then it was Wilson's for the taking, another Wilson. But I like Breece Hall later in the year then. So when like you said, when it comes down to week 15 or so, and you're in your fantasy playoffs and hoping for a championship, if you've got Breece Hall, you may have a real big gun to add to the arsenal there late in the season.
But you don't want to sacrifice, your season to have him sitting, because if you don't make
the playoffs, you got to get there first.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, you have to get to the playoffs first. If you can get him,
playoffs,
if I can get him
going at the 3 in the 3rd round, that's too early for me.
Well, if you want to take him, if you take him and you're counting on him as one of your top 2, you better grab some guys behind him after him that can really, boost you in the early part of the season and kind of soften the blow of him possibly working his way back in there. And that might mean you have to sacrifice, a wide receiver spot or 2 on your, depending on how you want to construct your roster there. So I wouldn't be counting on him early, but I'm not shying away from either of these guys. I'm just not necessarily targeting either of them. If I get either of them at value, I feel very good about taking them at value, though. I don't want to be reaching for them, and I don't want to be counting on either of them as one of my top 2.
No, and 5th, 6th round for Dalvin Cook sounds like value time to me.
All right, so we got that. Like we said, Breece Hall was activated. Another running back that was activated, J.K. Dobbins, got activated. He has been part of this whole running back drama, contract drama, and that. Plus, it's J.K. Dobbins, so he's always seemingly working his way back from injury. We've got J.K. Dobbins has been activated. More running back news. We've got Joe Mixon was found not guilty on his menacing charge. According to CBS Sports, Jonathan Jones, he put out a tweet that says that the league is not expected to hand down any further, penalties or discipline to Mixon after this verdict.
So wherever you have Joe Mixon targeted, you can leave him there now.
You can fire him up.
That's right.
I'm big on Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon has not been efficient, but he is a volume back, a bell cow back.
We talked about that. Are you going to sit there and just get all crazy about efficiency? But the bottom line is what is the bottom line when you're done? If he's got 18 points,
you don't care how he got him. Yeah.
I don't care how he got there. So, and now that whole thing is cleared up, Joe Mixon, I'm with you. And they didn't add anybody behind him, really.
No, they did not.
No,
and the story is
could stand alone in that backfield, which is rare in football nowadays.
The story behind him after they lose Samaje Perine to the Broncos in free agency is that, obviously they drafted Chase Brown out of Illinois, but they've got Chase Brown. They still have Chris Evans. They still have Travion Williams. But the story is that none of the 3 guys behind him right now has really stepped up to take full control of that number 2 position. Like Samaje Perine was definitely their number 2. And he was a guy that we had seen in the past, in the absence of Mixon, could step into that number 1 role and be a number 1 guy, like Madison and Cook in Minnesota.
Right.
We've seen that before. But without Perine there, now there's no real clear handcuff to Joe Mixon. If you're one of those guys
and
that likes
hasn't
the handcuff,
been identified in preseason either.
no.
So.
And so there's not pressure from behind him. Nobody's going to come up at this point. Looks like they're going to step up and take his spot. He signed that contract, reworked his contract. Looks like he's going to be around for probably 2 more years, this year and at least next year. So feel confident firing up Joe Mixon. I don't care if he averages 2.5 yards a carry. If he gets enough carries, and he will get enough carries in that offense,
which he won't.
He will score some points.
No, he won't.
Yeah,
maybe 3.5.
Right. But he'll score points. So
he'll score points. He'll get you some touchdowns. So Joe Mixon, let it fly.
Some wide receiver news real quick here. Sadly, Russell Gage, torn patellar tendon. He's out for the season. Not really somebody that I think we all had on our high on our radar, but that Buccaneers team is still figuring out their offense post Tom Brady. We still don't know yet necessarily who's going to be their starting quarterback. They haven't named one yet, but behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who are 2 bona fide fantasy starters at the wide receiver position, they are real thin now without Russell Gage. They've got a bunch of rookies and a bunch of kind of unknowns. They've lost names that we know had been there in the past. There's no more Julio Jones, no more Scotty Miller. So they're hurting right now behind Evans. We just talking about Mixon, Evans and Godwin. If either of those 2 guys goes down, there's nobody else.
Which has happened.
And yeah,
it happened last year.
It happened last year. There's nobody else on that team, which means that there's a lot of pressure right now on those top 2 guys. So
top 2 guys, and you talked about the quarterback scenario. Looks like from what I saw, Baker Mayfield, just basis of he didn't play, is going to be the starting quarterback. Do with that what you will, which I won't.
Well, and then right after that, though, immediately after that, head coach for the Buccaneers came out and said that don't take that, don't read that as such, which coach speak, we've all heard coach speak. But the fact that they have not officially named a starter yet is a little bit interesting. I think we all figured when Baker signed there, he was the guy, and they refused to commit to him at this point. But
which is fine. You don't need to commit to somebody 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks before the season. That I don't get why you feel the need to, unless you're Patrick Mahomes.
It's like naming your opening day starter in baseball in late February, like anybody cares.
Right.
All right. So yeah, and so more wide receiver. Go ahead.
Right. We need to not gloss over the other running back news, and that's Zeke going to New England.
Oh, that's right. No, we did not talk about that much. Go ahead. Tell us what your thoughts are.
We also had you and I. And the interesting part about this is right after that came out, all of a sudden now Ramondre Stevenson may as well just pack his bags and go home. And I think that's a very interesting reaction to me. And I've seen him start to slide in draft boards. And if he slides any kind of length, that's the guy that I am targeting.
Oh, I would
talk about guys we don't want. But Stevenson is a dude I do want. I kind of wanted him anyway.
Right.
But if he's sliding in drafts now because Zeke is there, that's insane to me. And absolute value because he was going, 3rd round or so before this. And if he slides down into the 4th round or 5th even, you got to go there.
Yeah, he's been going about mid 3rd round. If he falls out of that 3rd round because people are scared of Zeke Elliott, grab him
there at the 4th. That's, we'll have to have another huddle and come up with what we think about that, because I don't see Zeke stealing a whole lot from Stevenson. And we saw it last year. Pollard and Zeke both coexisted with each other. We don't know what Zeke still has in the tank, if he, what he's going to do, what they're going to do with him. So Stevenson is a guy I'd like to have, just because others apparently don't want him.
Oh, very much so. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was a top 10 running back last season, finishing running back 7
He's not going to go from 10
PPR
to 22 this year because Zeke is there.
No, I mean, he had 88 targets last season. He had 88 targets. That was third among all running backs. So they like to throw him the ball. You're talking about an offense here. I mean, in New England, they had Damian Harris there. Now, Damian Harris didn't play all year. He missed 4 games with injury, but Damian Harris only had 23 targets on the season. Okay. So, I mean, you're not talking about a lot. Damian Harris had a decent year when he played, and he was a good player. Though the work that Damian Harris took, you can give to Zeke. I don't think Zeke is taking targets away from Ramondre Stevenson.
Right.
And Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson already was a top 10 running back, even with Damian Harris there, even with Pierre Strong there, even with Kevin Harris there. I'm not worried about Zeke coming in and taking away Stevenson's value. What I am worried about maybe.
These analysts that have the different opinion, I don't know where they're coming out with that.
I'm more worried about Zeke's value because Zeke is stepping into a role that Zeke only earned half of the points that he scored last year.
And I'm not going to do that.
Zeke had 23 targets last year. We're not even
going to see him in the preseason, so we're not going to know what they're going to do with him, how he looks, or anything else. And he was extraordinarily, talk about efficiency, he was ineffective as a runner in Dallas last year. And he knows how to catch the ball, which I wish the Cowboys had done more with him. But we just don't know what he's going to give. And to go out there and say, okay, now he's the top 20 running back or any kind of craziness like that is crazy, as I just mentioned. So we're going to talk later about guys we're not targeting. I'm not targeting Zeke Elliott.
Oh, no, definitely not. And I mean, they used Zeke not quite 2-1 in the red zone in terms of rushing over Pollard last season. And he had 12 touchdowns. I mean, he was right. That was where they used him. That's how they used him.
Touchdown. You just can't do it.
But even
He's
if
not going to get 12 this year, I'll guarantee.
No, he won't get 12 this year. But even if they do that with him in New England, like I said, they're not going to stop throwing the ball to Ramondre Stevenson.
No,
Ezekiel Elliott is not going to cost Ramondre Stevenson touches, I don't think.
No.
The touches that he takes are going to be the ones that Damian Harris took last season. And I am much more confident in Ramondre Stevenson carrying his value from last season over than I am Zeke carrying his value from last season over.
Absolutely.
Zeke is stepping into like half the role that he had last year, literally. And I Bill Belichick, we've seen the running back shenanigans with the Bills for the Patriots, for the last 20, 30 years. But I don't see Bill Belichick giving an outsized role to an aging Zeke Elliott. I think bringing him in was a smart move.
But he knows how to carry a locker room and all that sort of thing.
He's a veteran,
he's a vet, and he can give some words of wisdom.
He's still a great pass blocker.
So
he's still a great pass blocker. So,
that's right. Listen to Zeke all day long, but then go out and play, because that's what's going to happen with Stevenson. So don't discount Stevenson. If you do, I
agree completely. Let's hit our first Manscaped ad here, and then we come back on the other side. We'll touch on some of the preseason news coming out from the games yesterday, and then we'll move on to our guys that we cannot stand and don't want on our rosters.
Spring has sprung, and our friends at Manscaped have the best tools for some spring cleaning. They've already helped you tidy up all the nooks and crannies of your body's basement. But this year, Manscaped can help you get the perfect presentation on that beautiful face with the new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Make sure you look your best this spring by using code BELLY20 to get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. So tame your mane with the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. The sun is peeking back out, which means you'll have to show your face in the daylight again. So use the kit to make sure your scruff looks award-winning, whether you have glorious beard flow or some smooth, sleek cheeks. Save 20% off and free shipping with the code BELLY20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code BELLY20 at manscaped.com. Focus on the face and use the Beard Hedger Pro Kit for the cleanest look in the game.
All right. We talked about Russell Gage there before the break, getting hurt and out for the season with a patellar tendon. One guy who's not going to miss the season, even though people were a little scared the other day when they saw him get injured. Treylon Burks from the Tennessee Titans sprains his LCL, but he looks like he is not going to miss significant time. Now, there's no word yet on whether he'll miss maybe a game or two of the regular season, but luckily here, it does not look, it looks like he bypassed major injury, did sprain that LCL, the lateral collateral ligament, the one that we don't necessarily hear about all the time. But yeah, it doesn't look like he's going to miss significant time. So Treylon Burks right now, a guy that, I think some people started to discount once they signed DeAndre Hopkins, thinking, okay, well, Hopkins is now the number one there. But don't discount Treylon Burks' ability. I mean, he disappointed at the beginning of last year. There was he didn't look like he was necessarily in shape or ready for the rigors of the NFL training camp last season.
Right.
But I'm not going to be shying away from Treylon Burks where I had him in the past because of this news with the LCL. In fact, I think it's good news that we know that we're still going to have him. We should have him for most, if not the full season already, for Treylon Burks. What's your takes on that Tennessee Titans pass attack and where you're ranking Burks right now?
I think I have Burks pretty much on my do not draft list.
Okay.
And this news, even though, as you mentioned, it's good news because he's not going to miss time, but that whole offense it's hard to figure out. They had Malik Willis play the entire game yesterday, and so what are we gaining out of that? I think that means he's not your starting quarterback. And I think that's an easy. You don't have your starter in week one play the whole preseason game too. Not going to happen.
Right.
So we don't know who exactly is going to be their starter. So we're still trying to figure that out. We don't know how. We haven't seen Hopkins on the field. We can easily say he's going to be the number one. That's easily, you don't have to be a very smart analysis to come up with that. So
right.
And so you still got the running game going on. And so I don't the whole Tennessee situation is not something I'm very excited about all the way around.
Okay. Now he's going right now. He's going on wide receiver 40. He's going like number 95 overall. So, I mean, he's going late enough. I think that, you're taking him as a flex player. You're taking him as
even
a
at
wide receiver
95
3.
is a little early for me.
Okay.
So that means he's going, 8th, 9th round. If he was sliding down a little bit because of this news, maybe I could look at that. But I think that there are players around the 8th, 9th round that you could get that potentially has more upside and more value than he does.
All right. We will revisit that. We will revisit that concept here in a few minutes here.
What's today, August? Was it 20th?
Yeah, today. Yep, it's 20th today.
All right, at approximately 10:35 a.m., Kevin said, and we'll come back to this.
Timestamp.
That's right. And some people might be saying, "Damn it, Kevin, why did I listen to you?" And
or why didn't I listen to you?
Kevin, yay! Let me buy you a beer. We'll see what's up with that.
All right, quarterback news from around the league, real quick here.
That's right.
Anthony Richardson and Sam Howell have finally been officially named
Sam Howell
starters.
is the guy I want to touch on, really.
Well, let's hear it. Let's talk about some Sam Howell.
They announced that he was going to be the starter. And then the reaction was like people were blown away. I can't believe that he's the starter. And Terry McLaurin's ADP has just took a massive hit. I don't see how that's possible because we all knew unless he did not play well, Sam Howell was going to be the quarterback anyway. And so,
let's not act like Washington had stellar quarterback play last season to begin with.
Anyway, and so, but they said going in that they thought Sam Howell was going to be the starter, And so Terry McLaurin's ADP is baked in with that idea already cemented. So now how are people discounting him based on Sam Howell being a starter is a mystery to me that I would like someone to explain, because wherever his ADP was last week or last weekend is the same ADP you should have now, because nothing earth-shattering has, no news that blew people's doors off has occurred.
Scary Terry McLaurin was wide receiver 14 overall last season with less than stellar quarterback play from Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke,
pretty
and
much
whoever else kind of tossed the ball around in Washington. He's going as wide receiver 20 right now. Terry McLaurin is a wide receiver value. I say jump on him. I don't care if Sam Howell is a starter or not. And Sam Howell, for his part, as a starter,
especially if he slides a little bit, get all in on Terry McLaurin.
Oh, I have no problem.
I'm all down with that, and no
Sam
problem
Howell
whatsoever. And if people want to back away from him a little bit, that's all well and good for me, because I will.
By the dip. Yes, definitely.
That's right.
Sam Howell, for his part now, if you're in a super flex league, or if you want to take a flyer on him as a quarterback in a super flex league, I really like him as a quarterback.
If he's on your waiver wire in Dynasty, get him.
Oh, he shouldn't be, but
starter,
if he is, jump on him.
Why would you not want somebody that's a starter in Dynasty?
And he's a sneaky decent runner. He's not prolific as a runner, but he's a sneaky decent runner. He's got a great receiver core around him with Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin. He's running in he's got Curtis Samuel still. He's got Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson in the backfield with him right now. And he's got, by the way, a new offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy here, who likes to throw the ball all around the place to all of these.
And apparently likes to get in his players' faces, which cause a problem.
Which I have no problem with getting in their faces. They're getting paid millions of dollars. They can afford to be yelled at.
Are we playing?
They can literally afford to be yelled at. Yeah. Get on.
Are we playing football, or are we playing water balloons, or what?
I have no sympathy for him being a little harsh or hard on grown ass men. I love Sam Howell as a quarterback too this season. If you're in Superflex,
especially if he's
as a bye week fill in single quarterback leagues, one quarterback league,
you are set to go.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. Anthony Richardson, a guy that in Dynasty I'm all about, and I am not above taking a flyer on him in redraft, but I do not want right now. People are drafting him and getting excited about him as a possible fantasy, quarterback one. He's going as quarterback 16 right now on average.
That's
deeper leagues. People are drafting him as a starter, and I don't know about that. He's got wonderful physical profile. We know that. And we know that he can be effective as a runner, but in order for him to actually be a fantasy starter, he is going to have to throw the football. Now, I don't know necessarily that that I don't think he can take steps. I'm saying this season, I don't want to be counting on him as my quarterback.
That's why I thought he would be better served if he was off the bench this year, where he can actually grow up a little bit before he's thrust in. And I
guess I don't mind him. I don't mind him being the starter right off the bat for Shane Steichen's offense, but I don't
want his confidence.
Fantasy wise, I don't want to have to rely on that as a number one.
No, I don't want. He may turn out to be shattered by week 2. That's my concern. That's always been my concern about him.
He may turn out to be the fantasy pickup of the year. Who knows? I mean, if so, great, and I hope so. I wish nothing else for the kid.
But I'm not picking him up in redraft.
Well, there are so many other guys that I would rather have
drafting him in redraft, unless I'm in a 20-team league or something.
He's going as quarterback 16. You know who's going as quarterback 15 right now? Geno Smith, who was last year's quarterback 5.
Right, and so.
You know who's going right after him? Jared Goff.
If you take Anthony Richardson over either of those guys, then
Jared Goff was quarterback 10 last season,
so I can get in part of it.
People are going to take him right around the same spot as a couple of guys that have been and we know can be top 10
are in
quarterbacks.
pretty good offenses, especially Jared Goff.
Right.
So, and the Seahawks, I'm a Seahawk guy, of course, but their offense, their rookies, talk about week 2, Joe Charbonneau, averaged like 10 yards a carry. All right. And then you've got Jackson Smith Najikma. Hopefully I'm getting that correct some way or form.
Pretty close, actually. Yeah.
Okay. He's looking good. And so Seahawk offense, I think is going to be, whether they decide to play 3 wide receivers, they're going to play that at some point, obviously.
Right.
If they play 2 running backs, which they probably will do that quite often. Either way, their offense is looking pretty solid.
All right. Yeah, no, I agree. In fact, I had that on my notes here.
Yeah.
Smith and Jigba looked pretty good this weekend in their preseason game. Now, listen, you hear me say it in the opening, and we have repeated it. It should be a mantra. It should be everybody's philosophy. Don't overreact to what you see guys do in the preseason. But I think the encouraging thing from Jackson Smith and Jigba is that he looks like he definitely looks like
it's okay to react.
Right. Yeah, no, it's okay to react to it. I don't think that anybody should be moving him up or down draft boards based on what they saw, this past weekend in that game. But, I think, he definitely looks the part. He looks like he is what we all thought he was. He's going to be playing with Tyler Lockett and with DK Metcalf. So you won't be able to cover any of those guys with more than one person. Should be an interesting time. I like the idea of buying into the Seattle pass game, whether it's from the quarterback side of things or the receiver side of things.
Yeah. So if you're at that level and you haven't taken a quarterback, Geno Smith, Jared Goff over.
I'm much more confident in those 2 over Anthony. Now, if you want to take Anthony Richardson as your number 2, if you're in a super flex league,
quarterback league, I don't recommend that.
I don't either. I don't necessarily recommend that either. But if you want to, I can get on board with that idea. If you want to take him and bet on that upside, but not go all in on that upside, and you want to take him as a 2, that's fine. Just understand you're going to be doing it at the expense of your other position groups there, because you're going to have to take him high enough that you're missing out on someone else.
You're going to miss out on a wide receiver or a running back or a tight end or somebody that's going to give positive fantasy production to a guy that may be on your bench, except for bye weeks the whole season.
Right. Other preseason takeaways here. Javonte Williams played. That's a good sign. He played well. They gave him what was it, like 8 touches, I think, in the game. They did not shy away from giving him the ball, which is nice to see. So Javonte Williams, that's a positive development there. We saw Rashee Rice get quite a bit of run.
That's the guy I wanted to mention. Don't overreact, but he sure looked good.
Looks like he'll be a part of that passing attack. We don't have to worry that he's going to be. Last year, Sky Moore got a lot of hype, and then Sky Moore didn't honestly see a whole lot of action.
Right.
Rashee Rice looks like they want to make him part of that.
Right. And as we've talked about many times, that's a nondescript wide receiver room. So anyone that steps up and steps out of that, you want to pay attention to.
One is as good as the next in terms of a dart throw, from my opinion.
Right. If you're throwing darts and come away with Rice, I think you're all right.
I don't want to grab Kadarius Toney or Rashee Rice or Sky Moore or Justin Watson or Richie James. I don't want to grab any of them ahead of their ADP. If any of them falls enough and I feel confident with where I am at the rest of my roster, I have no problem taking a flyer on one of them as my wide receiver 4 or 5, because there is always that possibility that one of them rises to the top of a Patrick Mahomes-led Andy Reid offense. That's got potential there, but I don't want to reach for any of those guys.
Right. You don't reach for potential, and unless you're in the 15th round or whatever, something like that.
But at that point, it's not reaching.
To answer your question, Javonte Williams had 3 rushes for 12 yards, 8 yards long. Perrine had 3 rushes for 22 yards. So they were both involved, and neither one of them caught a pass.
Okay, neither one of them caught a
Draw
pass.
from that what you will.
Okay. But the fact that he was in there and played was
right.
a big deal. I think, and I think that can kind of alleviate everybody's worries about Javonte Williams'
Right.
health. Now, how they're going to use him versus how they use P. Ryan, that still remains to be seen because it's preseason. Neither one of them has had to play a full game or tried to play a full game and shouldn't play a full game.
No.
We may not see either of them next week.
If
but
you're playing full games in the preseason, you can discount them for fantasy purposes.
Unless you're Josh Jacobs last year, and then somehow you end up being the top overall running back in the league. But that was complete
that's
anomaly.
A once in a lifetime thing, I think.
We had Devon Achane carted off the field with a shoulder injury. That's good news in my opinion. It's a shoulder injury, not a leg.
Yeah,
but
that's bad.
Ask Dalvin Cook how much shoulder injuries can affect you.
Yeah, I was high on him. But even before that, they were saying he was number 5 on their because they got 27 running backs, as we've talked about.
They have.
And if before that happened, he was number 5. So you might want to slow the Achane train just a bit until he moves up.
We see more of what shakes out in that backfield.
Yeah. So don't get overly excited about any of those guys. I don't think. Till we see what exactly is the pecking order there.
Jaylen Warren for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I should say, 62-yard touchdown. Again, like I say in the opening, don't overreact to what you see in the preseason. Listen, Jaylen Warren is an athletic running back, but that's Najee Harris's backfield.
It is.
Jaylen Warren was there last year. They are not going to stop giving the ball to Najee Harris. They're going to still
another
feed
guy
him.
that don't look for efficiency.
Right. No, yeah. Najee Harris, another guy. Yeah, like Joe Mixon and Leonard Fournette. You're not going to see efficiency.
Look for effect.
It's all volume from him.
That's all volume, and he's going to get it this year. And so
Jaylen Warren
first year, I think, is the blueprint for this year.
Yeah. Don't be hopping all over the Jaylen Warren train just because he had a 62-yard touchdown in the preseason. That was a nice run. It's a beautiful run. He's a good player. Yeah. I'm not one to handcuff my guys. I'm one to handcuff other guys. But if you're looking for a handcuff for Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren's the guy. So whether you're taking him to handcuff him because you took Harris or somebody else did and you like to, like me, snipe other guys' handcuffs, Jaylen Warren, that's what Jaylen Warren is at this point right now. Don't overreact to that. He's only going to have standalone fantasy value in the event of a Harris injury or if you're in a super deep league where you've got multiple flexes and that kind of thing. The other takeaway from the preseason that I want to mention real quick here, we have 3 games worth of evidence now on the Cleveland Browns because they played in the Hall of Fame game. The Cleveland Browns want to throw the ball to the running back, and Kareem Hunt is not there anymore. Jerome Ford is injured, has been injured. Demetric Felton is Demetric Felton and kind of splits his time between running as a receiver and running in the backfield. Nick Chubb is going to catch more passes this year than he caught last year. Nick Chubb
I think that was an easy conclusion to come to.
I'm not. This isn't like hot take of the hot take of the year. But I'm saying that like
nothing to undermine that conclusion throughout this preseason.
No.
So
37 targets last year. I think he catches more balls than targets he had last year.
You might even be able to double that.
Oh yeah. No, Nick Chubb going right now as the running back 4. And I think right now he's behind CMC, Eckler, and Bijan in terms of his ADP, in terms of where he's going in drafts.
And that's gone up, and it should. Yeah. And so if he's there and you're in the first round and he's there at the back of that first round and you're drafting, he's there.
And that was standard scoring. In PPR scoring, he's going as running back 5. I think he's still a top 4 running back in PPR format. I think that he is going to catch more passes this year because that team wants to throw the ball to the running back and they don't have Kareem Hunt around anymore. Now, when Jerome Ford gets healthy and gets back, maybe he starts to see a role, but are you really going to, would you rather have the ball in the hands of Nick Chubb or Jerome Ford as the Cleveland Browns, as a team with playoff aspirations this season?
Let me just say, don't listen to ESPN, all right? Because they've got him down 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's the 11th running back. That's insanity. Absolute insanity. So Go ahead
No,
and
I agree completely. I would jump. I would jump on Nick Chubb if he's there.
yeah. So
when your
we're
pick comes
like
up.
we said, we're at number 2, so there's zero chance he's there when we get on the board in the second round. If he is, somebody's doing something really wrong.
Yeah, I'll hope nobody else is watching this from the network so that maybe we can snipe him next week. One more note then from the preseason from last night's game. If you guys saw it, scary situation in the Patriots game there. Isaiah Bolden colliding with a teammate. He was down for quite a while. They ended up calling the game with about 10.5 minutes left.
Which is fine.
That's in the fourth quarter. It's a preseason game, but after what we saw with DeMar Hamlin last season and with how interested, there were guys
he played,
that were
by the way, and so that's looking good.
Right. But good news. Isaiah Bolden had all feeling in all extremities on the way to the hospital last night. They kept him in Green Bay in the hospital overnight for observation. He was released from the hospital this morning. He'll travel back home with the team today. So good news all around on that.
I saw that as well. So that's great news.
Excellent news all around on that. All right. So then real quick, let's take our second break and we come back on the other side. Now we'll really jump in on those guys that we're out on. We'll maybe have a little bit of disagreement here, but we're going to talk about the guys that we are in and or out on coming up here after this break. But first, let's hear about our friends from SeatGeek.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, we can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
All right. As we
also, Ryan was just talking on that commercial. It's his birthday today. So if you're watching this, Ryan, happy birthday to you.
Great work, Ryan. You made it this far. Keep going.
That's right. Keep it rolling.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point of everything. Keep it rolling. Keep going. All right. So, we have a comment here from Josh Mahler, one of our colleagues here at Belly Up. He wants to know if we're ready for the fantasy draft next Sunday.
Of course we're ready. Are you, Josh? You better bring your A game. That's all.
What Josh is referring to is next Sunday here on the Belly Up Fantasy Live Show. We will be drafting our 2023 Network Fantasy Football League. We'll be doing that live next week. We'll have commentary on that as we roll through that draft. Kevin and I are drafting as one team here. So you and with the number 2 pick, you guys will get to see our thought process play out live here on air. So you tune in next week, you get to see that.
Absolutely.
You get to see how the rest of the experts from Belly Up Fantasy, how we conduct our drafts and where we find the value.
And you can adjust accordingly.
Yep. There you go. All right. So guys, we're out on. We talk all the time about, this guy's a good value, or, this guy here, this is a guy he's a sleeper pick. Here's a sleeper pick. I want to touch, maybe we're being negative for a minute, but you know what? We're a couple of grumpy old men.
Okay. That's right.
We can be the guys in the balcony on the Muppet Show.
Part 3, we'd probably be in that. So.
Right. We can be the guys on the Muppet Show up in the balcony, and we can talk about guys that we want no part of here.
That's right.
I want to start it off real quick. I actually signed my name to this on a board at the Fantasy Football Expo. There was a group that had a board with takes like, "Hey, what's your hot take for the season?" And I co-signed with another guy on one saying that we thought Deebo Samuel was being way overdrafted. Deebo Samuel, last year's wide receiver 37. He's coming off the board as the wide receiver 16 this season right now. Deebo Samuel had one good year 2 years ago. He's a talented player. He's talented as all hell. I would love to have him on my real life team. But here's the problem. Everything that Deebo Samuel does for that team, CMC does even better, and they have him on the same damned team. And he's done it for longer, and he's done it more.
So if you want a wide receiver off the San Francisco 49ers, Brandon Ayuk is the dude you want to look at.
Brandon Ayuk is going as wide receiver 28 right now in drafts. You can get him rounds and rounds and rounds later after Deebo Samuel.
And he's going to match, I think, the fantasy production. We're talking guys we're not on.
They're completely flipped in terms of where they finished last season, the production they're going to put out, and their ADP. Brandon Ayuk was wide receiver 15 last season, and they didn't even really get him going until later in the season.
That's right.
I want no part of Deebo Samuel at ADP right now.
And it's still interesting because all 3 quarterbacks played for the 49ers. All 3 quarterbacks looked good. So there is still no clarity whatsoever who the starter is.
Oh, no. We think that Purdy appears to be their preferred starter. He looks like he'll be healthy for the season, but you've still got, there's still a battle there with Sam Darnold and Trey Lance.
All 3 of them played, and all 3 of them.
The word on the street right now is that Sam Darnold may even have the leg up to the number 2 position over Lance. That might be it'll be an interesting situation to watch because we know that Purdy's coming off the injury.
You know, he's if that's the case, Lance is he's washed up,
dead in the water. Before he even gets started, I think.
Yeah, I want you talk about guys I want absolutely nothing to do with. That would be Trey Lance.
I can agree with that, but that's my first guy, Deebo Samuel here. Who do you got here? Let's toss a name out.
Okay, so we've talked about running backs and all that. And so I'm saying, because we don't know what Josh Jacobs' situation is, we don't know what Taylor's situation is. So I'm going to go out and say I want nothing to do whatever with either of those 2 entire running back rooms. So because Zamir White, he looked all right. But, is that the kind of guy that you really want to be depending on in your fantasy season? I don't think so. And when you talk about Taylor, who are they going to have in there? Don't know.
That's the one that scares me. I agree with you completely there. Jonathan Taylor's the one of the 2. He's the one that scares me more because Josh Jacobs is healthy, and Josh Jacobs has no real incentive to sit out. He can sit long enough to make his point, sit long enough not to have to do anything in training camp or whatever. But and like you said, Zamir White behind him. Okay. But because
not really the reason why I'm so hesitant on Josh Jacobs, because he is the number 3 running back projected and going off the board 2nd round minimum. Or maximum.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whichever way that works. But
however you want to put it, he's going off. The highest he's going to draft is 2.
Is still, if it's still
up in the air. It's still up in the air.
I am certainly not going to give a 2nd round pick to Josh Jacobs. Not going to happen. And Taylor, he's fallen. He's already fallen.
I still subscribe. As far as Jacobs is concerned, I still subscribe to the simplest explanation is the explanation that's most likely thing is that he's on the field week 1 for the Raiders, in my opinion.
And if that happens by next Sunday, then disregard what I'm saying.
Well, then there you have it. But like you said, I mean,
but if he's
the longer he draws it out, the scarier it gets.
2nd round, Josh Jacobs, not happening in our league.
I'm a little more apt to take Jacobs at ADP. If he falls a little bit, I would jump on it. I don't want to reach for him.
Like we said at the turn, if he's there in the 3rd, top the 3rd, then we could have a serious discussion about that.
Jonathan Taylor, on the other hand, not only is there the whole weirdness with the contract situation, he wants to be traded. He's apparently very publicly feuding with the owner, even though they tend to downplay it. But he's still hurt. He's still injured. He's still undergoing treatment. He's away from the team getting treatment for this injury. So we don't even know if he's healthy enough to play, let alone if he will play when he is healthy. So the Jonathan Taylor situation is the one that scares me more than the Josh Jacobs situation. So I can understand people being out on Taylor this year. Right. I'm going to move it to another running back.
Make a mistake with him.
I'm going to go to another running back for my next. Alvin Kamara.
Okay,
Alvin Kamara is in decline.
In decline.
Had his worst season last season. His fewest fantasy points per game. He had fewest touchdowns. He was in decline already from last season. He's not in a particularly, He's not in Sean Payton's offense anymore. Okay.
Right.
On top of that, they bring in Jamal Williams,
Right.
who is a capable running back,
Right. In his own
rushing
right.
and receiving, not just
That's
rushing.
right.
I
That's
know he
right.
was the goal line back in Detroit last season, but
That's
he
why
has
he had 17
played the whole
touchdowns.
position before, and he can.
He won't have 17 touchdowns this year. You can mark that down too.
Plus, they draft Kendre Miller.
That's right. Which
And
a guy
both of
I
those
really
guys,
like. And
me
I
too.
think that those two guys together, when Kamara comes back, he's going to be scraping for anything he can get.
They've got
from
3
week
games
4 on.
to either one of them grab a hold of a role and not let go if they want.
That's right.
Right now, and Kamara's 3-game suspension is a little bit baked into ADP over where he was last year. He finished as the running back 16 last season. He's being drafted right now at about running back 20. But right around him, you can get Rashad White. Heck, you can get J.K. Dobbins and Alexander Madison a full round later after Alvin Kamara. And I have much more confidence in Dobbins and Madison's sustained production this
Especially
season.
Madison.
Yeah, I at that price where you have to take Alvin Kamara to get him, I would much rather have a Rashad White, a J.K. Dobbins, and Alexander Madison. I would much rather not be relying on a declining and possibly role declining Alvin Kamara at that ADP. So I'm out on him. Who's your next dude up?
Okay, so I'm going to stay with the because we're driving the running back train into the ground, I guess. But the guy that is someone that is ranked at number 10 at the running back position. That's James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals. And so I know it's preseason, don't overreact, but they looked absolutely garbagey. And so I don't trust any part of their offense. And to take somebody that at number 10 running back position means you're going to have to go up pretty high to get him. And he only had, I got it right here, in a better situation, he only had 782 yards rushing to begin with. So, and I've had him in the past, and he's done. But this year, at number 10, I want nothing whatsoever to do.
He was the running back number 10 last year in points per game. He only played 13 games, which depressed his counting totals some. But in points per game last year, he was the running back 10. But he also had
football. He could.
I think this was a little bit better offense in terms of conducive to him scoring points last season than I see it being this season. I think he's going to be playing with Colt McCoy a lot.
Colt McCoy
they're going to be playing without DeAndre Hopkins. This is not the Cliff Kingsbury offense anymore.
No.
So I'm not out on him completely, but I definitely do not want him to have to take him high.
As high as he's ranked, no.
I am much more comfortable with James Conner as my running back 3 and as a flex option than I am with him in
and you're not going to be able to draft him to have him as a running back 3. You're going to have to take him to be a running back 2, and I'm not going to do that.
Sticking with the running back theme, we kind of mentioned it earlier. Any Dolphins running back, I want no part of. That is just too big a mess down there in Miami.
Big mess.
Last season, in a better situation, theoretically, with fewer mouths to feed or whatever, Raheem Mostert was running back 31. Jeff Wilson was running back 36 last season. Where they are going in drafts right now. And you can throw Devon Achane in this as well. Like you just said, Achane doesn't even necessarily guaranteed a top 2 or 3 role out of the 39 running backs they have in that room. Who would you much rather? Devin Singletary in Houston, I think, has a better chance to carve out a role. Damian Harris is going after those 2 guys. He's going after all 3 of them in drafts. Damian Harris is now in Buffalo, has a chance to be the short yardage and goal line or split time in a timeshare with James Cook for a Buffalo Bill offense that we know can score some points. I would rather have Damian Harris than anybody on the Dolphins team this year. And for that matter, I talked about taking other guys' handcuffs. Elijah Mitchell and Tyler Algier are both going around the same spot as all 3 of the Dolphins running backs. And you're talking about a couple of guys that if anything happens to either CMC or Bijan, we know can step in and be startable starting caliber top 24, top 12 type running backs walking in the door. So I would much rather have just about anybody around that spot than any Dolphins running back.
All right, that's fair. And so I think we bashed running backs pretty heavily.
Let's move real quick.
I'm going to switch over to the wide receiver room. And the guy that I want nothing to do with is wide receiver number 25, and that's Mike Williams of the Chargers. And so, not to say that he's not capable, he is, but he has not proven that he could stay healthy. And right after him, Deontay Johnson and the previously mentioned Terry McLaurin are going off the board right after him. Yeah. And I'd rather have either of those.
Deontay Johnson is a steal.
Than Mike, because these guys are the number one receivers on their team, first of all. And so
Deontay Johnson will not go without a touchdown again.
Mike Williams, I've been burned by Mike Williams in the past. I will not do that anymore.
Mike Williams is a great receiver and wonderful, to have on your real life team. But in fantasy, for where you have to take him generally, you can't count on him to be healthy. Now, we can always play the if a guy's going to be healthy or if a guy stays healthy. But like Deontay Johnson going as late as Deontay Johnson is going, he is a target monster. If we see Pickett take a step forward in efficiency,
he will.
Which he should if he's developing as a quarterback, which
that's right.
is always the hope. If he can take that step forward in efficiency, Deontay Johnson is going to catch even more of those targets. And he had an absolute metric, ton of targets last season. And keep in mind, Deontay Johnson did not score a touchdown last season. That is not going to happen again. No. You're talking about a guy who was sixth in the league in targets, didn't score a touchdown.
Yeah,
he's going to catch more targets.
But you can take some that zero that has to go up.
Yeah, I think Deontay Johnson is an absolute steal, and I agree with you. I would rather have him than Mike Williams any day of the week this season. Sticking with the wide receiver theme real quick here, I'll spit out my last names here. Michael Thomas and Odell Beckham, they're going as wide receiver 41 and 42.
Yep, Michael
right
Thomas
around round
going
8
right after McLaren. Yeah. Then you got Lockett, and Marquise Brown is a guy we can talk about.
I don't want anything to do with those two guys.
No.
In redraft.
Going right after that, and I want nothing. Whatever.
And I will use this to kind of highlight what could be an entire other show discussion, but I have Michael Thomas and Odell Beckham on multiple best ball rosters, not as one of my top wide receivers though, because in best ball, Michael Thomas looked pretty good for the 2.5 minutes he actually played last season, and could still be some semblance of the Michael Thomas that we've seen when he's healthy, but he hasn't been healthy since about 1978. And Odell Beckham again missed the entire season, looked
Carter
really
was
good.
President last time he was healthy.
Last time we saw Odell Beckham on a football field, he looked really good, but that was over a year ago now.
Right.
I don't want to have to take them where I have to take them.
Time, so yeah, so.
Other guys you can get right around Michael Thomas and Odell Beckham right now. Brandon Cooks, who is going to be the number 2 and is in a passing offense in Dallas.
Right. You can get Drake London. You can get just guys. Christian Kirk. Guys like that.
Yeah. If you can get guys like that, grab them. If you can get guys like that, grab them.
And
I would rather take. I would rather take a shot there
in Chicago this year. So. They got Michael Pittman here. I'm not going to go there. So.
No, not. Yeah, I'm not excited about Michael Pittman, but yeah, I don't. Michael Thomas and Odell Beckham do not hold any excitement for me in redraft. I would rather leave them on the wire or leave them to somebody else's headache. If they blow up, good on them. I wish no ill will toward either one of those men.
They go off, hey.
But
congrats to you. But
yeah, they're not going off on my roster probably. So
no.
All right. You got one more. You got one more name for us here.
One more. Okay, so let's see. One more name. We haven't talked about the tight ends just yet, but let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They've got Tyler Higbee going at tight end number 9. That's insanity to me. I'm not going to have anything to do with the Rams offense players. And right after him, you could have Evan Ingram, who was a guy that I had a year ago, and probably is a little high as well, but I would much rather have Evan Ingram on my fantasy team than Tyler Higbee
It
in that
seems like we're
entire
always
Rams
waiting
offense.
for Tyler Higbee to like be
That's right.
something, and he's just not. He's a
He's
fine,
just
again,
not.
another fine
And
real life player,
right. And
not in
so
fantasy.
after Tyler Higbee, you can have Ingram, you can have Pat Freemuth. I've been still trying to get his name right.
I would take
You can get
Freiermuth all day
Schultz in
long.
Houston. You can get Komet at Chicago. I think he's going to be stepping up this year.
I would take
So
any of those guys.
I would take any of them.
Any of them before Higbee, yeah.
Them.
And you
over
can
Tyler
wait on those guys. You don't have to reach high to take any of
You
those
can
guys.
wait.
I would
right.
jump on any of them over Higbee. I agree with you completely. That's going to do it for us today. We've gone over our time far enough here. We've got lives we have to get back to, and we're going to let you guys all get back to your lives too. But before we do, we want to remind you real quick to join the Belly Up Bowl here. That's our fantasy draft, our best ball league tournament that we use to raise money for Alex's Lemonade Stand to help out the kids with cancer. You can go over right now to bellyupfantasysports.com. At the top of the page, there's a link in the bar that says Belly Up Bowl. Click on that, sign up, get your money in, get in on that. It's a best ball tournament. You do the draft,
get in on
you don't have to worry about it.
If you don't play best ball anywhere else, do it here.
Play it here at the Belly Up Bowl.
It's
great for kids.
Great for kids.
And there's prizes too. There's prizes to be won too.
That's
we will still be taking people for the next couple of weeks.
So your league, there's money to be had. So
jump on that, get in there. So we want to remind you about that. And then we'll also want to remind you, like we said, join us next week. We will be drafting live here on the air. We'll have our Belly Up staff league. But Kevin, where can we find you and what do you got going on right now?
Well, I did not allow you a moment to crow a little bit because you took me down.
Yeah.
You took me down last week. And so fantasy baseball has just 2 weeks left after today. And things are getting exciting over there as right now I'm beating Dan, who is our defending champion. If I do that, he's eliminated. So
Dan D'Amico,
he will not be defending his championship. And so you're locked into the number 3 spot. Well, not locked, but
not quite locked, but
not quite locked.
I'm having a good week again.
You're having a good week again. And then there's Vince right behind you. His dad is at number 2. And
I'm beating his dad this week. I'm beating Dale this week too again.
So if you take him
I've
down,
got a good record
that would help me because then I'd have a 2-game lead over him with 2 to play. So it looks like I'll have the number 1 spot locked down.
I'm liking this right now. We're headed for a showdown right now, Kevin, to be dead honest with you right now. I've got a good record against Dale. I'm beating him right now. It looks like we're probably going to be the 2 and 3 seeds. So we'll probably meet in the first round of the playoffs. And like I said, I have a good record against Dale. You're the number 1 scoring team in the league by far. After this week, I should be number 2. I would like to point out too, though, while I'm maybe running my victory lap about beating you last week, it did take the top score in the entire league to do it because you were the number 2 highest score in the league last week. A little bit of bad luck for you running into, my hype train right now. This will be my 6th win in a row if I pull this off today, I believe. But it took the highest score in the league to beat you last week because you are about 600 or 500 to 600 points ahead of everybody else in that league right now.
So
you've been nailing it all year.
You'll be taking on Dale in the first round, and I'll be taking on Vince for the 2nd consecutive year.
That could be interesting. You could have to go through both of your co-hosts to win a championship.
That's right. So things are definitely bubbling over there in the fantasy baseball realm. So you'll definitely want to join in tonight. Vince and I will be talking about some of the top players that are hot and some that are cold. Who can you depend on going into the last 2 weeks in the playoffs? We'll discuss that. And I also have an article, postseason pickups, that I posted this past week. So if you're looking for some guys who can help your fantasy team, if you're in another league or you're either A, you're trying to make the playoffs, or B, strengthen, go ahead and look that article over. It can help you out. And so that's on the Belly Up Fantasy website right there. If you're into baseball at all, over on the regular Belly Up side, there are tons and tons of articles about baseball that are being produced like almost on a daily basis. So
That's right.
Belly Up
Get
Sport,
over there.
Belly Up Fantasy. Check those websites out. Do it today.
Excellent. As always, find me on the Twitter machine at STTChaseFFB. Find me over there at bellyupfantasysports.com. For Kevin, for myself, for everybody here at Belly Up, join us next week. Watch that draft. But until then, we hope you have a good week. We hope everything goes well for your home leagues and drafts. But we are going to say Slanjava for the week.
That's right. Have a great week.